Here's something until about a year ago I was completely ignorant of, and that's the problem. I assumed that because we had a volunteer army, and when you see them in uniform going about their business, they strike you as nothing but smart young professionals, which is what they are. What didn't occur to me until about a year ago when it was called to my attention is often when they're out of the military and they come back, there may not be a life for them.
Well, you know, as you know, a year ago, Jill Biden and I started joining forces with the primary goal of rallying this nation to support our troops, veterans, and their families, because many of us don't understand the challenges and the struggles. We take it for granted because we have 1% of this nation serving and protecting the rights of the other 99% of us. And I fell into that category with you. I don't come from a military family. And it wasn't until I started campaigning and traveling around to military bases where I got to meet these very resilient, proud, disciplined, smart individuals. And I thought, most Americans have no clue the level of sacrifice they're making so that we can live in freedom. Right. And this campaign is designed to make sure that every single member of our armed forces, our veterans and their families, understands that they live in a grateful nation and that we will be doing everything we can to rally support for them so that they never feel that they're alone in this struggle.
And people who do feel that they are alone, what will be done for them?
You know, what we encourage people to do is whatever they do best. You know, first of all, we encourage people to figure out where are the military families in their midst. You know, not everybody lives on a base. There are reservists, National Guards who are living in every community in this country. There is a military family in every community. Find out who they are. I mean, it can be something as simple as mowing the lawn, you know, giving a parent a break who is dealing with a loved one on their 5th deployment. I mean, just imagine what these military kids are going through. I mean, they are moving from base to base every few years. I've met kids who are on their 12th school in 13 years or in 11 years, but they're still keeping their grades up. They're still managing to keep it all together, trying to be the big brother to the younger siblings. I mean, just imagine what these kids need. And a lot of it is it's something small. If you're an accountant, provide some pro bono accounting services. If you're a church, embrace a family, bring them into your congregation. If
so
you're a teacher,
it doesn't have to be a check of $10,000, $20,000. It can be the smallest gesture you might think of toward another human. And I also made the mistake thinking that while these people are in uniform serving our country, that nothing looks better on a resume when they get back than I spent 3 years in the Marine Corps or the Armed Corps. But again, it doesn't always work that way now.
Well, we're seeing some improvement. I mean, one of the things that Barack is trying to do is really make sure that our private sector employers are hiring, and we're seeing the unemployment rates among our military decreasing at a faster pace than the broader unemployment rate, which is a great thing. Right. But we also don't want them to forget the military spouses as well. I mean, these men and women are just as trained, just as prepared, just as competent. They're some of the best that this country has to offer.
Has this situation, this dynamic, been in existence historically in this country? After World War II, did we see things like this after World War I?
You know, I think we probably did a better job then because there was a draft. There were more people. You know, everyone had a family member that was serving and sacrificing, and now we have an all-volunteer force. So not everyone is connected to someone who goes to war. And as a result, we've got to keep those families top of mind.
Yes, absolutely. Now, there's another circumstance which is near and dear to my heart. Not that the first one isn't near and dear to my heart, but it's the notion of fat kids. Well, I don't know.
We don't talk in terms of weight, Dave. We talk in terms of health.
Health, right. These, so they're not fat. What are they? They're endangered dietarily. They're endangered nutritionally. Nutritionally endangered. But here's what I know. there's two culprits here. Sugar, we consume so much sugar in this country, and fat. We consume so much sugar and fat. And those are the two things that seem to be everywhere, for heaven's sakes.
But we also don't move as much. You know, I mentioned when I grew up, there were 7 channels. Now, a kid can watch TV for 24 hours straight.
Right.
The average kid is in front of a screen for 7.5 hours a day.
The average American kid.
The average American kid gets 7.5 hours of screen time a day.
We got to get that number up. We've got to keep working.
No, Dave, no.
We can do so much better.
That's why it's called Let's Move, not Let's Watch TV.
I can remember a few years ago listening to somebody talk, saying that there had been some kind of a study. Kids who watched TV 8 hours a day, kids who played video games 8 hours a day, and didn't go outside. You described in your childhood being outside. When I was a kid, always outside. Yeah. They're no longer outside, and that is having a subtle change on them personally.
In so many ways. I mean, we see it in school. I mean, it's not just important for kids to be strong academically, but they have to move and get good nutrition.
Right.
I mean, you know, you imagine your son, you know, sitting still for 10 hours a day and then trying to do something with them, right? Yeah. I mean, kids need to move because that gets their brain working and gets them focused.
The other thing that I keep wondering about is you go into a store and say you want a can of green beans. You have your choice of, I don't know, maybe 10 different kinds of canned green beans. Why then, with so much food just down the street from everybody, are kids in the millions in this country hungry?
Well, because we have millions of Americans who live in what we call food deserts, where there are communities that have no access to a grocery store, fresh produce. I mean, you think about in rural communities and many underserved urban communities. I've grown up in some of these neighborhoods where you have to get on a bus, take a cab to get to a grocery store to buy a head of lettuce. And that's one of the things that we're trying to address with Let's Move, is that we've got to make sure that families have access to fresh produce, because you can't tell a mother, feed your kid better, and then she can't afford the food and she doesn't have access to it. So we have to work in this country, and obesity and hunger are two sides of the same coin.
Well, I always at this point in a conversation invoke the World Food Program, and people there tell me that starvation in the United States and around the world is one of the problems that we actually can solve.
That's the beauty of this.
So to people who need to get on a bus and go X number of miles to get whatever they need to survive, that seems like that could be fixed.
It can be fixed, but we also have to make sure that parents have the information about the high levels of sugar and salt. You know, I don't think parents want to do the best for their kids, and sometimes you just get into habits. It happened to me before I came to the White House. One of the reasons why I started the Let's Move initiative is that my pediatrician pulled me aside and said, you need to look at what you're doing. We were eating out a lot. I was working, you know, a lot of sugary drinks. The kids were, you know, in front of the TV more than I would have liked. So we just need to give parents the information, and we need to be clear in this society that this is a problem, and it's a problem that's solvable, and give people some tools.
And it's very obvious, the right best thing is very rarely the easiest
Absolutely.
thing.
I mean, this takes work. We start with kids because kids are the easiest to change their habits. I mean, part of it is you look at somebody and you tell them to put down a soda, and they're already hooked. But if you stop a kid early, they won't develop those habits. One of the things I ask kids, I'll ask them, would you ever think to water a plant with a can of soda? And they say, well, of course not. But we just don't teach them to think that way about themselves, you know, that there's a reason that you have water and you've got to have vegetables and you've got to have sunlight and air. So we need to have a different conversation in this country about our kids' health, because, you know, they're our future, and there's no one in this country who doesn't want the best for our kids. We just need to work together to make it happen, and hopefully we're seeing some progress with Let's Move.
Would it be all right if I come home with you?
Please. Please. Come on. I've got a ride. I got lots of space.
I bet you've got a ride.
You can stay next door to Mom. Grandma